Hey, this is Todd Clark. We are back at the GV Expo, which is now called the Video Show. Do not get it confused. The Video Show is here at the DC Convention Center for 2 days, December 4th and 5th. And it is a wonderful opportunity to come check out media technology, the content providers, the communicators, everyone who's involved in production. There are regional organizations here, like our booth, 300 TIVA, as well as some national organizations. But this would not be taking place if I wasn't talking to and finding out how it made it works, Adrian Rigby.
That is correct.
Adrian is here with a company called GES. And GES, and I guess you do this for every event that comes into the convention hall.
Correct. GES actually has shows globally.
Globally, okay.
They have a location all over, from East Coast, West Coast. They pretty much specialize in any type of event, any type of venue, some of which, of course, are located here.
Okay. So even, because I don't understand what AFLEC is, but they always talk about, we're the company that makes other companies work. Mm-hmm. So GS is kind of in the same thing. You are the company that makes other events work. It makes the event. Correct. So you're responsible. If you could just sort of break it down for what in this. So we're looking, as we look around this space, what did GES do?
Basically, GES came in with a blank slate.
Yep.
This was an empty venue. They had a production schedule in place, whereby every aspect that is needed to put a show together is brought to the forefront.
Literally the nuts and bolts, the carpet, the tables, everything.
The audio visual, the electrical, the sound systems.
Yep.
We have people who come in and lay the floor out. There's a floor plan that's designed especially for the event.
Yep.
That's tailored to each particular client or trade.
So that says to me you've seen some really interesting,
fascinating,
designs.
Awesome shows.
Yep. So we'll start with this one. Mm-hmm. It seems to be this year there seems to be a emphasis on the studio aspect. So we've got a center, I'm just using my layman's approach, a sort of center area with, you've got the technology providers, and then surrounding it, literally in the outlying
all the little studio
configurations, all these little studios.
Yes.
So is that new? Is that a typical setup? Or?
What usually happens, every single trade show is custom designed to fit the needs of the client. For this particular event, they wanted to really focus on a more intimate environment where you could handpick your topic area and you could bring in a group of people that were interested in that particular area.
So as you look around, as we sit here, the first half hour into the event, do you feel like, you've satisfied three visions? Vision of the client, the vision of you, and the vision of your crew to kind of make it happen?
The vision of the client is the most important because we want the client to walk away with a positive experience.
Right. So this is what we expected.
This is what we want done. Right. That's the mission, to make sure the experience is positive. From the second level, it's important because every detail matters. That one missed detail can make the difference of a good experience. For the crew, they're in sync. We brief ourselves on each trade's needs and mission, and we try to envision it to the point where we can make it a reality for them.
Well, just judging from my own perspective, walking around, I think we've achieved that sense of intimacy, but also I think, and also diversity. There's such a great mix of folks here, and this is, for us, I mean, this is our, I don't know, as an organization, we're 30 years old, but we've been coming here for as long as it's been called something else, the video show.
I've been fortunate to have been involved with the video show over the last few years. That it has been here under different names.
Okay. So here's, I know somebody's probably saying, all right, what is the most, I guess I'll put it in these three descriptive terms. What's been the most, it can be all three if you want, the most surprising, unusual, wild setup that you were responsible for making happen?
Having camels appear as a part of a travel show.
Wow.
Where they offered camel rides.
In the
convention center, where the technology shows that involve some of the aviation innovations.
You had flying camels for that one.
Had
No.
the remotes flying around the room.
See, I wanted to do
That
that
was
one
very
year.
cool.
So you had so somehow they got permission and it all worked
Yes.
out.
Yes. Another really cool one was to have the interactive options for children.
Okay.
And oftentimes the kids will come in and they're a little intimidated, but oftentimes some of the shows will create an atmosphere that's exclusive just for the kids.
So I have to go back to the camels. So did you become a camel whisperer? Meaning someone had to keep these animals calm, and then someone had to clean up after them.
They
Someone
had to clean
feed
up
them.
after them and feed them, but they offered camel rides.
So did you take a ride?
Yes, I did.
So
I loved it.
So this is going to sound like a naughty question, but were these one hump or two hump camels? I guess
These were one hump camels.
Okay. And so you sit behind the hump or on
Kind of,
top?
sort of. They had a elevated platform.
That's right, where you sit on top of it. So
Right.
you're actually pretty high up.
You are very high up, and
Kind of-
oftentimes you had to get up on a ladder,
Yeah.
and you were assisted, and then you mounted the animal, and then
Wow.
they took you around a ring. Another very cool one was after one of the administrations came in, they had longhorn steer that were actually corralled on
I'm
the
sure it
floor.
wasn't the Bush family, but okay, go ahead.
Actually, it was one of the re-elections of that
That's
party.
terrific. So that's
And
an unusual one.
it was unusual for the standpoint that the animal was young,
Yeah.
and the handler said, "Let me show you something." So the animal was just kind of looking around, and then she said, "Smile," and then the animal turned and faced the camera and held his head up.
Wow. Star power,
Yes.
no matter the species.
She said they train them very young to be comfortable in this type of environment.
Interesting. So I had a couple of technical questions. So I don't know if you noticed, but we're sitting on some red carpet right here. So last year, and there was sort of remnants that were heading out the door. So I immediately grabbed a remnant, and it was big enough so it fit the platform. But someone told me you do repurpose this
When at all
acres of
possible,
carpet. Yeah, you'll
when
bring
at
some
all
back.
possible, we try to recycle as much as we can to prevent it ending up in a landfill.
Yep.
And that's very important.
So is that a new value? I mean, would you talk about? Do you talk about a capacity to handle someone who has an eco-friendly or green approach?
Yes, often we do a lot of green shows
Yeah.
or eco-friendly shows, and their focus is to have as much possible available for the clients or for themselves that fit that criteria.
Yeah.
So it's very important, and we try to make sure that we can do the same. We've scaled back on certain types of products that we use,
Right.
and now focus more on eco-friendly products to stay consistent with that theme.
So at this point in the event, are you now on autopilot, or are you still putting out fires?
We try to address them as they approach.
Yeah.
For the most part, we've got probably about 99.9% of them contained.
Yeah.
If there are needs that take place in the course of the day, there will be someone available to take care of them.
Excellent. So last question would be, let's say someone is watching this and is considering coming to the convention center for their big event. How soon should they be getting in touch with someone like yourself to kind of go over ideas? I know there's probably a pecking order of all kinds of stuff, but eventually they'll sit down with someone and talk about, here's our vision. What do you think? And hopefully that's the approach.
Oftentimes, they have to first take into consideration the schedule of the venue,
Yeah.
because often these shows are booked years in advance,
Wow.
if not a year to 6
Yep.
months in advance. Once they determine it meets their needs, they contact a company to transform their vision into the reality that you see around us today.
So there could be on staff, but there is a third party that says,
Yes.
all right, let's really think about exits and
Multi-levels, you
egress.
sit down at a table, you have a production meeting, you discuss your vision, you discuss how large, how small.
Yeah.
You also want to make sure that all the materials are there
Yeah.
to provide that visual impact that you need.
And you physically need to move hundreds of people
Yes, you
throughout
do.
the event and get them in, get them out, so they can. It's almost like grazing for information, right?
Yes,
So,
and you work with the support systems that are provided for you by the venue that you're in
yeah.
to make sure that everyone has that experience that they're looking for.
So the last thing I know I said it a second ago. So what are your parting words of advice for someone coming into a space like the convention center? What should they keep in mind? What are some lessons learned? Your pearls of wisdom for folks.
Lessons learned would be Make sure you have a very good idea of what you want.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, if you don't, you waste a lot of quality time.
Yeah.
Make sure you're in communication with your clientele and with your exhibitors, so they have a very good idea what to expect, because there's
so
some
no
that have
surprises,
not.
no letdowns,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's harder.
Factor all of
It's
that
harder
in.
to fix it on site. Like, things can be fixed, but it's harder to do that versus.
It can be if it's an experience that no one has ever had before,
Right.
so they need that exhibitor kit to provide as much information
But they
as
need
possible.
someone like you who's seen it all and can kind of say,
We're
if
there.
you put your tables like this, or it's
Yes.
just not going to work, because let me tell you why.
Yes.
And then hopefully they listen to that advice, and they
Especially
kind
for the first timers who've never been on a
Yeah.
show site before. They may need a little bit more care.
yeah.
And you want everyone to feel that they're there for you.
Cool. Well, it's really been interesting talking to
It
you.
was a pleasure.
So they can find you through GES right
Yes,
here.
they can.
Okay. And we're going to be here for the next couple of days. So
Yes, we will be.
I'll be telling everyone I know the author and the architect and the installation expert to make this thing happen.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
And thank you for your time.
Excellent. So this is Todd Clark. We're here at the video show TIVA booth 300. Next 2 days, December 4th and 5th. So come down and see how this place is laid out. It really is an intimate, provocative, inspiring space to be in for media production, for content creation, for all kinds of ways people are saying who they are and what they do. See you in a few minutes for yet another interview. Thanks for tuning in.